Such a gorgeous perfume.
It really is.
And again, it's
full.
I love the name, but like Geranium per Monsieur, anybody could wear this.
We used to sell this to a ton of men.
Oh.
And what's the big deal?
No big deal.
No big deal.
If people say, what's it called? Just say, it's called Portrait.
Yeah. I mean, Portrait is what a lot of people just called it. They were kind of, can I get the Portrait?
Yeah.
And you go, oh, sure, yeah.
Or put your name in there. You know, you are important.
Portrait of a Thomas.
Portrait of a Thomas. Yeah. Again, just putting that out there for Frederic Malle. Maybe a flanker. Portrait of a Thomas. Portrait of a Candy. It's Fume Chat, yeah, Fume Chat with Thomas and Nick. We talk perfume and fragrance with humor and wit. From Chanel number 5 to Angel and more. We're covering the famous scents that you're looking for. It's time for some fragrances. It's time to start the show. Hello and welcome to Fume Chat. I am Thomas Dunkley.
And I am Nick Gilbert.
And we are your fragrance-obsessed hosts of Fume Chat, the podcast to which you're currently listening to.
Yeah, and it's all about perfume.
Yes.
Ja-jang.
Hello, welcome. Take a seat.
Yay.
Someone will be with you shortly.
Or not.
No, they won't. No one is going to serve you. We are only serving
knowledge.
And yeah.
And whatever it is we serve.
Yeah. The menu is not defined. We just serve what we serve, and that's what we serve.
And that's, unfortunately, it's just, you just get what you're given.
You get what you're given, and there is no complaints process. So that's that. So today we are talking about Frédéric Malle, not necessarily the man himself, but he will be featured because you cannot talk about his brand additions to Parfum Frédéric Malle without talking about
Frédéric Malle.
Yes,
because it's right there in the name.
It's right there in the name, and I think he's quite integral to what goes
do. On. Yeah.
So yes, they are celebrating 20 years of being in existence,
which is quite impressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you just know, right? I know that there hasn't been parties because I'm gesturing at the world right now because we live in hell world.
But it would have been amazing.
But you know there was good cake.
Whatever happened, there was good cake.
At the Frédéric Malle party, there's good cake.
Yeah.
They got that lot of money. They got that lot of money.
They got
There's
the
good
money
cake.
that they can spend on the good cake.
Yeah.
That I would absolutely just stuff my face straight into.
Yeah.
I don't care. Sorry. I'm already at a place at that party. It don't matter.
No, they would serve you a tiny fork to eat that cake with, but we would probably eat the fork with the cake because we would be too quick to eat the cake.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough on the Frédéric Malle cake. I feel like we're talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, we could just do an hour about cake.
Honestly, we could. We could.
Next time.
We might. No, we're not going to. So Frédéric Malle, yes, is 20 years old. That means that they started at the turn of the millennium in the year 2000 because that's how mathematics works. So if you take 20 away from 2020, you get 2000. Thank you. Applause, please. I will wait for your applause.
You got it.
I got it. Okay. I was just waiting for the viewers, readers, listeners to applaud.
Yes. Viewers, readers, listeners.
Please applaud now. So yes, and Frédéric Malle, I think, is a very important brand. We could talk about, any brand turning 20, but I think there are a few that have been as integral to perfumery. That's a pug having a shake. Than Frédéric Malle.
Yeah, I don't think it's an understatement to say it has been significantly game-changing in the fragrance industry. Overall as a brand, because of part of the approach of how Frédéric Malle works and the whole idea of that they're like a publishing house.
Yeah, and that's the way he's spoken about it, that he is a publisher of perfume and they are a publishing house. So it's about putting the perfumer front and center, really. Because I think it started, he from what he has described, it's kind of this industry malaise at the turn of the millennium. So where perfumers were quite fed up with creating mass market fragrances for mass market brands because they were making copies of copies and then using...
Well, that's still happening.
It's still happening, but they were using the same palette of materials. And actually, whilst there were niche brands around, niche wasn't really mainstream.
Well, I mean, niche was super niche at that point in time.
Like massively niche, yeah.
Yeah. The market was much smaller. It was not really defined, and I think actually Frédéric Malle coming along with Editions de Parfum really helped define what it could be.
Yeah, absolutely,
and sort of set a tone.
Yeah, and it made this kind of, I think it turned niche from being niche, because I think it would be very difficult to say, I mean, now 20 years on, but you couldn't say that Frédéric Malle is an inaccessible brand. You can find it very easily.
Yeah.
And actually some of the price points are relatively reasonable for the fragrances that you're getting.
Yeah, I mean, ain't nothing cheap.
No, it's not.
That's because it's very lovely stuff.
Because it's very lovely stuff. But actually, it turned niche into luxury now. Because I think niche is almost kind of disappearing. It's now indie now.
Yeah.
What is the true niche? An actual niche is luxury perfume, high-end.
Yeah, I would mostly agree with that.
Okay, good.
And that other
Well,
thing...
tell me in detail about the bits you don't agree with. Because I noticed that wasn't a full endorsement.
I would mostly do that. Just to say, the other thing that I think is really important about Frederic was putting the name of the perfumers front and center.
Yeah.
It's on the bottle.
Yeah.
It's on the box. Like,
yeah.
Ain't no one doing that at that point in time.
No.
And perfumers were really not spoken about. He's having a little shake.
He's having another shake. Yeah.
He's shaking it off. But yeah, perfumers were not really spoken about at that point in time. So like right back at the beginning of my career, which is about 2000 as well, when I started working in perfume, I hadn't really like twigged that perfumers were making the fragrances. And I think for the vast majority of people, as in customers, they also hadn't really thought about it in any way. And it wasn't until I'd sort of like found base notes and sort of come across Frédéric Malle that I was like, oh, people do this.
Yeah. And I think people still think that now, because I think we don't really... If you're not really interested in a particular product, you don't really think about how it got there, do you?
No.
I suppose you assume that somebody somewhere did it. Like, you buy a ready meal from the shop. You're not actually thinking about the fact that somebody has done like recipe development and then there's like, all of the manufacturing. You just think it was just there. Yeah. And I asked a question on Twitter at the weekend, actually, to non-perfume people. I said, what's a question you'd like the answer to? And it was all about longevity and projection. Yeah. It was not about... Well, where does my perfume come from? People just don't think about it. Yeah.
I think it was just kind of natural.
Yeah.
But for sure, perfumers, up until kind of Frédéric Malle pushed them forwards and made them the kind of like talking point.
Yeah.
Were kind of kept in the shadows. Totally. Like there were people that you just didn't know about. It was quite secretive. And that was kind of it.
Yeah. And actually they do like phenomenally complex work.
Yeah.
But also very artistic, creative work and are responsible for some of massively best-selling products that
in the world. Yeah, but also I think more importantly than being like best-selling is actually like the memories and the emotions and all of that kind of stuff that they're actually responsible for creating, and that goes for all kinds of products, right from like fabric conditioner that reminds you of being a little kid, to the perfume that your grandmother wore, to the aftershave your first fling.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking...
Your first time war? Like, whatever it was.
Being on brand with Frédéric Malle, just think about how many babies Maurice Roussel is responsible for with Musc Ravageur. Like, seriously. He's got a lot of splaining to do.
I mean, I really liked one of the stories about the development of that fragrance as well, where they realised it was the right version when she was wearing it on the...
Oh, yeah, his assistant was wearing it and was being followed. Yeah.
Which is kind of like a little creepy and wrong, but at the same time... It's kind of I suppose that's definitely what you want from that fragrance.
Yeah, you want people to go, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
Here's my number. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah. So, yeah, Frédéric Malle put perfumers front and center, name on the box, name on the bottle, but also in terms of the creative process. Now they talk about how it's, it's total creative freedom, but I don't necessarily think that is probably exactly correct, because if you think about the way Frederic has described working with the perfumers, it's a very collaborative process. So I think from the sense of, do they go into it and say, we want you to make a fragrance with this name? No. I think it's more about they just work together to create something, talk about the feelings and vibes. And he actually, I read a really cool quote where he described it as being like musicians in a jam session, like you're kind of just working through and connecting your brains to come up with something.
Cool. So like coming up with like, they find an accord or a material and then they're kind of playing around and going, what can we do with that?
Yeah.
And I think like that massive book that he put out years ago.
Yeah.
When I say massive, I just mean physically enormous.
Oh, it is a giant book.
There on the table in front of me, and it takes up most of the table.
Yeah, you have not known antisocial behaviour, or you have not displayed antisocial behaviour until you have carried a copy of that book on the tube, which I have done, and have been severely cautioned by the police. Yeah, because it's so big and it's unwieldy, but it's beautiful.
But it's a gorgeous book. But he really well describes in there kind of how the accord that was used in this fragrance, we then use that as the beginning of something else, and so you can see how the kind of collaborative process really works.
It feels organic. Yeah. It's like very anti-marketing. I mean, obviously, I think that has changed as the brand has developed because with success, with new owners comes a focus on sales, obviously.
And kind of getting product out there so you can anniversarize things and blah, 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 blah.
But there is kind of like a internal code of ethics that they almost follow in terms of the spirit of the brand, which is...
don't put it out until it's ready.
No. They don't launch something every year. They haven't launched a fragrance this year.
No.
They don't launch one every year. It's normally, lots of brands will launch at least one a year.
Yeah.
Malle is like
3 years
sometimes,
in between stuff.
Sometimes they'll do 2 in a year. They'll do one in sort of 2 corresponding years, or they'll do nothing for 3 years. There's kind of... It's just very organic, it feels to me.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was working at Les Senteurs, so I've got a lot of like good memories about Malle as a brand. And I remember Claire, who probably is listening, hi Claire if you're listening, saying she got an email from Frederic where he was very annoyed that his team wanted him to finish a fragrance so they had something to sell. So he was like, nothing's ready. Yeah. It's like, and that seemed to be like the way that he approached the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a really cool way of doing business in the perfume world, which is so focused on let's launch 10 things this year. Or something like
absolutely. That. And Frederic has championed lots of different types of perfumers. He's used kind of industry stalwarts like the Pierre Bourdin and Maurice Roussel, Dominique Ropion, all like the kings of perfumery, but then lesser known perfumers like Fanny Bal and things like that.
He's like an up and coming perfumer. But then also, I think this segues really nicely.
Oh, lovely! I set you that up. I set you up for that.
Bringing attention to the greatest perfumer of the last century.
Yes.
Edmond Rudnitska.
Yes.
By launching Le Parfum de Thérése.
Yes. And there is kind of a lot of background and history to Frédéric Malle in perfume. He kind of will talk about how he was kind of almost like born for it a little bit because he one of his a bedroom that he stayed in or he had was like Jean-Paul Galland's bedroom. Yeah, his mother or father worked at Dior. Mother worked at Dior. And obviously they were working with Rudnitska to create some of those like amazing fragrances. So he kind of grew up in that world.
Sort of like near it.
Yeah.
Not necessarily immersed, but he definitely started his career in perfume quite early on as well.
So there's quite a personal connection between him and Rudnitska and this fragrance.
Yeah. So Le Parfum de Thérése was a fragrance known as La Prune originally, and it was created by Edmond Rudnitska for his wife Thérése. Yeah. So, I mean... It's a proper classic style fragrance, like chypre, mossy, earthy, all of that kind of stuff going on. But then this really weird, plummy, peachy, fruity stone fruit note at the top. And then I also find it slightly aquatic.
Yeah, there is a kind of like oceanic freshness to it,
which I just think is really wonderful because it's kind of like dew, or is dew the word I'm looking for? Like beads of water.
Yes, beads of dew, yes.
Beads of water on a plum.
Yes.
It's just been washed or something like that, or it's been rained.
And he came to know about this fragrance because kind of on the sly, I think, because Rudnitska, when he created it, I think he'd presented it to Dior and they were kind of like, well, could you do Diorissimo first?
Yeah.
And then I think when Dior died, there was not an appetite for something so bold with the new ownership or management at Dior. So it kind of was something that he just gave to his wife and she ended up wearing it and people knew it because they smelled it on her. I think he made very few samples for people. Yeah. And so when Frédéric Malle kind of found out about it, he phoned up Thérése and said, would you like to launch this as a tribute to your late husband? And she was so touched that she said, yes, go on. So this has a life now.
It has a life now, which is wonderful to kind of think that the attention was sort of like not the attention, the reverence that is deserving of Edmond Rudnitska was paid with this fragrance, which I think is kind of like a wonderful thing. And it was one of the beginning fragrances of the brand.
Yeah, I haven't smelled this in years.
Yeah, me either.
And like my previous me, a few me's ago, when I last smelled this, would have been like, this is beautiful, but not for me.
Yeah.
But I can totally see myself wearing this now.
I mean, it still doesn't feel right for me, but especially in what you're wearing today.
Yeah, well, I'm very autumnal today. I've got a lovely sort of red, burgundy, I would say, corduroy jacket on. Yeah, like kind of like a sheepskin thing going on.
Yeah.
Layered. I'm very layered today.
Very layered. And just layered.
Just layered.
Oh, isn't that good?
Yeah, it's a beautiful fragrance. Kind of timeless classic.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. But it's also, I think, if you're kind of like a vintage fragrance lover, this is one of the
stop picking up that dreck at flea market the flea markets that went off like 20 years ago. Come and buy this. It's good stuff. It's good juice. It doesn't smell like vinegar.
Yeah, it's not oxidizing. But yeah, I think Le Parfum de Thérése is one, a wonderful fragrance, and two, a wonderful tribute.
Yeah, I think so. Beautiful. Yeah. So we are going to sniff through, I suppose, some highlights, some emblems from the collection. Not necessarily all of our favourites, but ones that we think you kind of, if you had to do a Frédéric Malle episode, you'd kind of have to talk about these.
Yes.
Not that we're being forced to do this at gunpoint. I just like to let everybody know we're not being forced to do this at gunpoint, and we are willing participants.
And it's actually not sponsored.
It's actually not sponsored. We just thought
it was like a cool thing to do because we both got like great memories of Frédéric Malle fragrances.
Yeah, I mean, it is one. I've said it before on the podcast, and I shall say it again because I'm boring. This is one of the few brands where I would happily own everything.
Yeah, I think it's very much like a ready-made wardrobe.
It's like from IKEA, but you don't have to put it together. But no, that's a really bad analogy.
That's a really bad
because
analogy.
Because it's actually the opposite of what it is. It's like high-end furniture. Yeah. Okay, moving on. We're going to talk about Une Fleur de Cassie next, which is again one of the original collections.
Yeah.
And I think the idea behind this was to really play on a note that I think he's described it as violent, the note of Cassis, because perfume is Cassis.
Yes.
Did I say Cassis?
You said Cassis.
Well, you know, we all make mistakes, don't we?
We all get things wrong.
And it's kind of creating that kind of like opulent, like post-war vibe, isn't it?
Yes. Really? Yeah. So I loved this for a really long time because I loved kind of like powdery, fluffy fragrances. And I was also obsessed with Farnesiana by Caron, which is also based around Cassis or Acacia. So it's related to the mimosa, but it's not mimosa.
It's like mimosa adjacent.
Yeah.
Which is why this also has a mimosa note in it.
Exactly. But what's good about this is you don't get the kind of like cucumber aspect of the mimosa.
Yeah.
Which I
we
find.
Know you hate
cucumber.
Immortals my kryptonite.
Yeah. But things are true. So
facts are true. Breaking news on Fume Chat. Facts are true.
Facts are facts, America. No, it's mini car.
Okay, I thought you were just coming for America.
No. I'm coming for drag queens. But I just love this. It's so vintage in feeling. And it felt so out of place launching at the time that it did. But it's just so stunningly, achingly beautiful.
Yeah.
Like this wonderful soapy aldehydic thing that's going on in there. It smells like the most expensive soap and face powder and like powder puffs and all of that kind of stuff.
It's pure opulence, isn't
opulence.
it? Yeah.
I just really like smelling it. And I've not smelled this in ages.
No, again, this is one that I've not smelled in a very long time. There is like a real, like, almost like dank, dark animal thing that is quite... I can't like really place it in another fragrance.
A dirty furs thing going on. The fur coat, no knickers.
Yeah. No, fur coat, fur knickers.
Potentially.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful fragrance. And it's really fascinating smelling, because we've started with probably the two most vintage smelling ones to see how actually this is quite an innovative brand with lots of novel, interesting things going on, but always like this real, like, beautiful approach.
Yeah, and I think this kind of like respect for the classics.
Yeah.
And respect for the art form of perfumery.
Totes.
Yeah.
What's next?
What's next is Carnal Flower.
Okay, so we cannot talk about Frédéric Malle and not mention Carnal Flower.
No.
Because it is, I suppose it's the tuberose to end all tuberoses.
I mean, yeah. My God.
So it's got at the time that it launched, it had the highest kind of concentration of tuberose in there.
I mean, I probably imagine that's still the case.
Yeah,
because tuberose ain't cheap, and you're not throwing it at stuff.
And it's really very green.
Yes, like incredibly green
and
stemmy, vegetal,
fresh,
like green peppery almost.
Yeah, I think peppery because I do get like a spicy crackling facet to it, and then you've got the kind of the fleshiness of the tuberose, but without really much of the sweetness. So it's not. I think they're trying to every. I think Frédéric Malle's approach with this was like, well, every tuberose fragrance since Fracas has been a variation on Fracas. So it's trying to make something a bit more photorealistic.
Yeah, and it feels like the intention, I believe, was to kind of peel it apart and put it back together as the perfect. If tuberose smelt this good,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Because tuberose smells amazing,
yeah,
very intoxicating, very powerful, but can be a bit jarring and shocking to a few people because it's so intense.
Yeah, and the absolute just like you'd smell it and go, why would you ever put this in a perfume?
Because like you get the camphor facet,
and the meat facet,
and it's all just a bit weird.
It's very weird.
Yeah,
you don't get any of the beauty. You have to kind of tease that out in a way.
Yeah, exactly. And here there is like a touch of the camphor. The meaty part, I would say, is gone, and you've got a more sort of like milky, creamy aspect.
Yeah.
And then you've got all of the green, the wonderful sort of like soft, petally, milky bit all together, and it kind of hovers in between gardenia and tuberose a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they share a lot of kind of olfactive character. But I as a person who is not crazy about white florals in general, I still think that this is one of the most beautiful ones I've ever smelled. Yeah. And like, what else do you say?
Yeah,
it's so good.
I agree. I think it's an absolutely gorgeous tuberose. I love that it's got this really strong solar quality to it.
Yeah,
it kind of feels like it's flooded with light. And it's just kind of so seductive as well. I think you have to kind of think about Carnal Flower, that it's not just about the tuberose, it's about this kind of carnal nature of skin and bodies, and I think the French would find a kind of better word than bonking, but I suppose
what's the carnality of
the sensuality of an afternoon romp. I don't know.
Afternoon delight.
But it's kind of like that. It is like,
oh, sure.
It's playing up on that like corruptive, sexy nature of white flowers and tuberose specifically. Because is it true that virgins weren't allowed to go walking in?
Allegedly so.
In tuberose fields?
Yes, because the scent was only for ladies of the night, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds like a load of bollocks.
I mean, who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Those people that say those things.
It's just hearsay.
It's just hearsay. Yeah, this is good.
Yeah, I mean...
You've heard it here first, guys. Carnal Flower is good.
I mean...
We are the first people to say it.
It is, though.
It's really good. Oh, I remember buying myself a bottle of this. I bought a 50ml and almost crying as I handed the money over. Because it was like, I think it was near enough £200.
Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah.
oh my God.
Because I very much remember people kind of buying the 50ml and then coming back and buying 100ml like 2 weeks later, because people would just spray the shit out of it. Yeah. They would wear so much, and I think that it kind of lends itself to being worn opulently. Oh, that's not the kind of fragrance that you're just like spraying a little dab on.
No, you need to spray.
Yeah,
people need to know.
It's a generous application.
Yeah, they need to know that you mean that you want the
business.
thing.
I mean business.
You want it, and they've got to give that to you. Yeah, that's what
that is.
That's what this is. Yeah. Okay, so moving on from Carnal Flower then
to Dante Bras.
Dante Bras. So this is one of my personal favourites.
You wearing it today, and it smells glorious on you.
Thanks.
Which is
annoying. I just bring out the best in things.
Yeah, no, it doesn't smell great on me.
So
which is annoying.
This is Maurice Roussel.
Yeah.
And obviously they worked together on
Mousse Gravageur,
which I kind of nearly finished. I think it came to the brand.
Yeah.
This was a new project, and the starting point for this was Cashmeran, which is that wonderful kind of musky material that is woody, resinous, piney, soft, musky, peppery, a little bit leathery, kind of.
It's got a lot going on.
I love. She's very complex. Okay.
I love a bit of cash.
Yeah, you don't want to spark up a conversation with her at a party because she'll tell you all her problems. But Cashman is beautiful, and it's normally used really in kind of smallish doses to kind of amplify certain effects in fragrances. Whereas the starting point for this was like a metric fuck ton of Cashmeran, and to see where that goes. And the idea is that I think it developed into something which was all about warm skin. Yeah. Which is where the name Dante Bras in your arms comes from. And it's like salty skin, sweet, salty skin.
I love smelling it. I just can't wear it. for the life of me. Salty skin, yes. Also a slightly sort of mushroomy, earthy thing going on.
Because there's a violety kind of element to it, which adds the earthy thing and the sweetness, I think.
And I think there's also claws. I think there's also like talons in here.
Oh, I was like, Santa? Who? What?
Santa?
No. Yeah, there's a little bit of like sexiness going on.
And it just smells good.
It's one of them more, I think it's one of the more cerebral perfumes
it's
in the
definitely
collection.
the most abstract.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, I don't know what...
Where do I place this?
Yeah, I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
Whereas at least the others kind of like, they're like, oh, well, that's a flower. That is a fruit. That is whatever. You know,
like, I can't imagine it's the bestseller.
Probably not. No.
But kudos to them for they still produce it.
I mean, to be fair, we used to sell this when I was at Les Santos.
Les Dennis, everybody.
Les Dennis. When I was at Les, we didn't used to sell like masses of this, but the people that loved it loved it.
It's kind of, you can imagine the person that kind of wears it. I imagine they're quite introverted, like me. They're kind of really very artsy and cool, like me. Very intellectual, like me. Just like handsome in that unconventional way, but it's also very undeniable that they're handsome.
I mean,
this is all what's on my Grindr profile. I never get any taps.
But maybe it's just not humble enough.
Oh yeah, no, the person that wears this isn't humble.
No.
Yeah, I just love that Frédéric Malle would make something. I feel like only Frédéric Malle would
do this.
Only a partnership with Frédéric Malle would end up with this as the end product.
It's a strange beast, but a beautiful one.
Yeah, and I find that I really have to be in the mood for it. It's one of those perfumes like
you couldn't just throw that on.
No, like sometimes I put it on and I'm like, not today. No, back in the shower. And the only other fragrance that I really find that with is Eau Noire from Dior.
Oh yeah, well,
some days I'm like, oh, I can just smell that lovely malted lavender, and then other days I'm like, I smell like celery. Get it off me. But this is kind of like, sometimes I'm like, I just really don't feel like this is right for me today. Yeah. But like, I sprayed it on actually earlier, and I was like, dang.
Yeah, I mean,
damn,
perfect for cold weather and feeling autumnal and all of those kind of things. So actually,
yeah, it's good for autumn. It's lovely.
Yeah, it's great for fall.
Yeah, it's great for fall. Yeah, it really takes you from day to night. I have been saying
it's like a red lipstick.
I have been saying that to everybody, and because not many of my friends listen to this podcast because they're all trash. Nobody gets what I'm doing, so I'm just sounding like an idiot. Just really takes you from day to night. Yeah. Okay, next one then. Geranium pour Monsieur.
Yes. So typically they hadn't really gendered the fragrances at Parfum, and then this was the first one that kind of had like pour Monsieur in the name.
Yeah.
And then followed by Monsieur a few years later. But because it was kind of just like wear what you like.
Yeah. Fragrance is fragrance. It doesn't have genitalia. There are no dangly bits on any of these bottles.
No, but then that being said, if fragrance helps you express your gender in some way or whatever, that's also a really cool aspect.
Go for it. Yeah. There are literally no rules.
Yeah, do what you want.
But I suppose the pour Monsieur here is relevant because this is a twist on the fougere.
Yes. So and it's all about shaving soap and all of those kind of like classic materials.
Oh my God, it's so good.
I avoid smelling this because I like it and because there's someone that I don't like that wears it.
Oh, who would that be?
I will not mention them by name.
No.
But yes. I do not.
But it rhymes with Brighton Hove. Right. Moving on slowly but surely.
It smells great. It smells great. That's the great. The most amazing thing about this is the kind of like icy cold sensation of the opening because it's like luminous bright.
Yes. It's like, for me, it's like an immaculately white metro tiled bathroom where you go in and the light is like, and it's so clean you could do anything in there, but you wouldn't because it's a bathroom. But metaphorically, you could do.
It's like Patrick Bateman's bathroom.
Yes, without the psychopath. Well, there is a psychopath in there.
Yeah,
but he's currently in therapy. But the great thing about this is like mint is so difficult to do in fragrance without it because everyone's association with mint is toothpaste. Yeah. But this is not toothpastey because I feel like they've gone for some of the camphorous side of it, but and the mentholated side, but actually focused on the herbaceous quality of
Yes.
mint rather than like the sweetness.
Yeah. And because that plays really nicely into the geranium herbaceous mint part.
Because geranium has a kind of quite prominent mint facet anyway,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah.
So you kind of get to tie it quite nicely together. And I think it just smells really great.
Yeah.
It smells really great. And actually, even though it is Geranium pour Monsieur, Harley as well. It's like a very Les Senteurs flashback episode.
Yeah.
For me. But Harley used to wear it all the time.
Yeah.
And she was like this young, cool kid. So
It is. Yeah. I think a woman could wear this easily.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just really clean, crisp. There's like a sensual ambery aspect underneath, but it feels clean in a way that you kind of you can't compare to much else, because all of the other clean things either smell like laundry or citrus or like you just showered or whatever. This is just,
it's a new kind of clean.
Yeah.
But I quite like that it's got substance to it. Like you wear it and it's got quite a presence, and it doesn't actually feel that light on the skin.
No.
For me, I feel like there's depth to it, and actually sometimes I feel like if I wear it on a really warm day, I'm like, oh, actually maybe this isn't the right thing for a warm day, because it does have quite a heft to it. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I think if you compare this to another kind of very mint prominent fragrance, which is like Dirty by Lush, like they are so like far apart. That is very much like a toothpaste mint with seaweed.
So that's such a strange experience.
Such a strange experience. I don't necessarily dislike it, but I think that
I think it's probably one of their most successful fragrances in terms of execution.
Yeah, the shower gel is great. But I think this just shows like how mint can be so luxurious, and for a fougere, I mean, it's so clever.
Yeah, it's just really novel.
Yeah, I love it.
It played out nice,
and I love the picture in the book is because the book comes with lots of these illustrations which are kind of beautifully painted. It's kind of this like really twinky guy, kind of surrounded by
mint and pelargonium.
And what I love about it is like if you think about classic fougères, you know, you would probably have some like really buff, like hairy chested older guy.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like smooth chested, clean, modern man, isn't it?
Yeah. Which I guess it kind of is.
So just if you ever have to change the name for licensing reasons or whatever, Frédéric Malle, Eau de Twink. I just want you to take my suggestion.
It's there. You can pay me by check.
Yes, I will accept Bax transfer. So actually, this leading on to the next one I'm going to talk about, which we have to talk about because it's what it is.
Why would you not?
Why would you not? Because it is glorious.
Yeah.
The base of this, which is quite a resinous base, was almost a starting point for Portrait of a Lady.
Yes.
Because Portrait of a Lady is quite resinous. It's their, I suppose they wanted to create, and I remember reading this somewhere, probably in the book.
Yeah.
Kind of a modern Oriental.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's move on from the word.
Yeah.
But, you know,
modern amber.
Modern warm. It doesn't work in that context.
No, it doesn't.
And this is what they came up with, and it has been
a massive success. You smell it everywhere.
Everywhere.
Well, I mean, I say that as if anyone's going anywhere. I used to smell it.
I smelled this in my living room the other day when I was wearing it.
I used to smell this a lot when I was going around. Like London and so, because
it's the London triangle of Portrait of a Lady, Baccarat Rouge, and Santal 33. That's what it is.
Correct. Yeah. But it's just the most fabulous, opulent rose.
Yeah.
With this wonderful fruitiness in the top.
Yeah. It's
so like raspberry.
Almost like neon light.
Yeah.
So bright and like juicy.
So bright, juicy, but tart.
Yes.
And then very, very, very voluptuous rose, Turkish rose sort of style. So a bit more velvety.
Yeah.
I find. And then the kind of like cinnamon, spicy, ambery resins, so that kind of like sandalwood and benzoin thing that's happening in the base as well, where you get this really soft fuzziness.
Yeah.
But nuclear.
Yeah, I mean, it can be smelled from space.
Yeah.
In space, they can't hear you scream, but they can smell this.
Portrait of a Lady.
That's the quote. That's the pull quote, isn't it? In space, they can't hear you scream, but they can smell Portrait of a Lady. It's just glorious, isn't it? It's just so. It's just so extravagant. It's so over the top. It's so decadent. It's just, and it's kind of like they were like, well, you want Fruituli? We're gonna give you Fruituli.
We're gonna give you, and we're gonna amp it all the way.
Yeah. Like the volume it's up,
but then it's also incredibly elegant.
It's so elegant,
given that it's such a there's so much power and personality in this fragrance. It still feels very elegant and kind of just classy, I guess, in a weird way. I don't know if classy is a word I should use about fragrance, but it feels good.
When I wear this, people literally lose their shit. Yeah. I'm not even joking. Like, there are people who come up to me. Like, I wear so many different fragrances and people don't even notice because they're selfish and they're not focused on me, which I
can you imagine?
Frankly, is just rude.
Unacceptable.
But there will always be someone wherever I am who goes, "What is that?"
Yeah.
I remember I used to work with someone who loved this fragrance so much, but they were the personality type that they could never part with that much for a perfume. Yeah. And I remember once she burst into the office, like holding all her bags, like exasperated, and went, "You're wearing Portrait of a Lady, aren't you? I could smell it in the lift." And she'd obviously followed my trail up to the office, and I was like, "Yes, I have arrived. I am here,
and I am wearing it.
I am wearing it. Yeah. Thank you. You may bask in my wake and my glory." Such a gorgeous perfume.
It really is.
And again, it's full. I love the name, but like Geranium per Monsieur, anybody could wear this.
We used to sell this to a ton of men.
Oh,
and what's the big deal?
No big deal.
No big deal.
If people say, "What's it called?" just say, "It's called Portrait."
Yeah. I mean, Portrait is what a lot of people just called it. They were kind of, "Can I get the Portrait?"
Yeah.
And you go, "Oh, sure, yeah."
Or put your name in there. You know, you are important. Portrait of a Thomas. Yeah. Again, just putting that out there for Frederic Malle. Maybe a flanker. Portrait of a Thomas. Portrait of a Candy.
Portrait of a Candy is going to be much sweeter.
It's going to be so much sweeter. Oh, I'd love them to do a gourmand.
Well, they kind of did, which is actually the next one we're talking about. And it feels like you did that as like a setup.
Yes. I'm going to say yes, I did.
Yes, I totally did. I'd love them to do a gourmand. Well, Handy, you should talk about that.
Yeah.
Because here we go.
Yeah.
We are incredible professionals here on Fume Chat.
Everything happens purely by coincidence.
Yeah. It's so funny. I think someone said, "Do you script it?" And I thought, can you imagine trying to get me to stick to that? Not happening.
Yes, but what we do is we get 1,000 monkeys in a room and eventually they come up with the script.
That's how that happens.
Yeah.
Just like give them perfume words. Just press enter, enter.
Yeah, this is entirely AI. Because unfortunately between Nick and I, we have no intelligence.
No I between the two of us.
So this is Dries van Noten, which is kind of like almost like a sub line, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it felt like it was going to be, and then what happened?
Yeah, because the Frederic Malle was, I think it was kind of billed like they would do lots of these collaborations. Yeah,
and then is it Superstitious? It was with
Albert Elbaz.
Yeah, I was going to say that the wrong way round.
Yeah, Albert Elbaz.
Yeah. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
I'm going to get that wrong.
Yeah. That wasn't released as a Frederic Malle.
No, and I thought it was kind of in that line, and then it's all very... Anyway,
yeah.
It is what it is.
Again, it's organic. So Dries van Noten is, I think he's Belgian. I want to say Belgian.
That sounds right.
That sounds right. Answers on a postcard, please.
Yeah.
And he does like very odd clothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's strange.
Beautiful runways.
Yeah.
Beautiful gowns.
Beautiful gowns.
Sorry.
I'm going to have to take a pass on that one. Yeah, so it's his work is again quite abstract. It works with lots of like, I think it could be wrong. I don't pay that much attention to fashion, but I think like lots of things are like quite knitty and like woolen. There you go. You can hire me, Vogue.
Woolen.
They're woolen. And this is kind of perfect for that.
Yeah. I mean, so
let's get in. Let's wade in. Nick.
Let's get into it. So it's ultimately a sandalwood.
Yes.
But playing up the kind of creamy, sweet aspect of the sandalwood. So you've got this like baked pastries thing.
If you could make sandalwood cookies.
Yes.
This is what it would be.
Which actually, we had some sandalwood shortbread. Sandalwood and patchouli shortbread here.
Really?
Yeah.
And you didn't share it with me?
They may have been eaten before.
They didn't have a chance. Yes, it's quite creamy.
Yeah.
And it's milky, creamy, sweet, but not like sugary. It's kind of...
Well, it's like, okay, so to me, it's kind of like maybe there was a sugar glaze on top. And that's as
lovely
as far
golden
as you
glaze.
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
Ever so
but
nice.
It's also very plush. It's like, I would call it a scarf scent. Like you could spray some scarf.
For sure. You want to be wrapped up in it.
It's so textural, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. And then... now I'm going.
Yeah, because you're hungry.
Because I'm.
It's
been a while, and my blood sugar's down.
Yeah, I mean, you only ate like 3 biscuits like 10 minutes ago. So.
I only ate 2. But yeah, it's you can smell the kind of like vanillic part, and to me, the vanilla. What I like about this is it's kind of like the dark side of vanilla, rather than the sweet, sugary aspects that you sort of like think of ice creamy or something like that.
Yeah, it's the richness, isn't it? It's like almost like the syrupy, like.
Yeah, it's kind of like a vanilla pastry made of sandalwood.
Yeah.
Lovely.
It's like this in like the depths of winter, like in the coldest time. It's like central heating for the skin. It's just so gorgeous.
I mean, it's lovely.
It's again another quite abstract one, I think.
Yeah, because it's not. Maybe it's not a specific thing. Whereas, and I guess Portrait of a Lady doesn't really fit into it's a thing, but it's kind of recognizably a perfume.
Yeah. Whereas this is like,
yeah, that's a wonderful smell.
It's a thinking man's perfume. Yeah, I really enjoy this. I don't wear it that often because I think
because you have to be really cold to wear it.
You have to be really cold, and it's kind of
to
like
me.
I don't know. I sometimes forget that I have it, and I really forget. I feel
well,
it's bad.
You said because it's in the leather case that you got given. You're like, oh, it's in the leather case, so forget about it.
No. So, so little backstory. So it has. I'm very lucky. I'm very blessed. #blessed. I went to a breakfast at the Ritz. This is everyone's tuning out. This arsehole.
Oh, I went to breakfast at the Ritz.
I went to breakfast at the Ritz with Frédéric Malle for a little event.
I was not invited.
You're not invited. And it was a wonderful time because I got to meet Frédéric Malle. First time I met him, we have a wonderful photo of us in front of some lilies, and we both look like we're at an aunt's funeral. I will dig it out. It's quite funny because Frederic he's a very enigmatic man, but he's not a flamboyant man. He's quite a quiet, measured man when you meet him. So there's this quite funny picture of us, and then I got to sit next to the wonderful Caroline Hirons,
legend,
who tried to convince me, and I'm sorry, Caroline, you can sue me after this, to convince me to steal a giant fat piece of Portrait of a Lady, again of which there is a picture of me trying to do, hiding it behind my Silk McQueen scarf. Anyway, and we got given these little leather cases, that they do by the Valextra cases, I think. And then we got to go and take them to the boutique in Burlington Arcade and pick a fragrance. So I was like, well, what fragrance will I have? I was like, I don't know, because it's like, when you put on the spot, well, I have so many Frédéric Malle. I was like, maybe I'll get a top up on Carnal Flower because I'd run out. But I was like, no, get something that you wouldn't necessarily pick for yourself, that you think is really interesting, that you can explore and take away and enjoy. And that's how I ended up with Dries van Noten. Somebody did there, and this is true, ask if they could have the Night, which was like the £900 bottle of wine.
You couldn't hear my reaction, but I think my eyebrows literally leapt off of my face.
There was kind of like a silence amongst us where we're like, I think it was pretty unwritten that we couldn't ask for that one because it costs 7 times as much as every other one there. But
my goodness.
Yeah, so it sits in the little leather case, and I think because it's not
visible,
because again I have ADHD brain, so if it's not right there in front of me going where me, I'm like, it doesn't exist. So I'm going to take it out of the case now.
Yeah,
so I can wear
do it.
That was a very long-winded thing where I drop names. I talk about my penchant for theft. It was So please, I'm really sorry. I promise you, I'm not garbage.
I am. Yeah. Well, aren't we all?
So we're gonna finish off on a newer-ish one.
Yeah, it's not super new.
It's not actually. It's like 6 years old now.
What is the latest one? Even I can't even
Rose and Queer.
Okay, which
we were not fans of.
Yeah, not crazy about it.
No,
but yeah. That is what it is. But we are both fans of this.
Yes. We've probably talked about it already.
We talked about it.
Yes, sorry. Eau de Magnolia.
Probably talked about it. We definitely have.
We have.
Yeah.
This is my favourite fragrance from Frédéric Malle. If you go by how much I wear it. So I think there's a travel spray here.
Yeah.
And there's also a 100
full
ml,
size,
which that's my second 100 ml of that I've bought.
I mean, I have just I've got like a dreg left, and I'm gonna need to replace.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't have any that I can give you.
No, that's fine.
In my 130 ml that's sat here.
I'm not asking. I'm just saying that next summer I will have to replenish.
It is like I live in it in summer.
Yeah.
And weirdly, this year was the first year I didn't live in it in summer. Maybe because we weren't going out.
Yeah, maybe.
But I every holiday I go on.
Yeah.
That I will always think about which perfumes I take. this one will always be in there regardless. There's a slot for Eau de Magnolia.
Yeah, especially if you go anywhere warm, anywhere anything. So Eau de Magnolia is by Carlos Belaim.
Yes.
And it's based on a headspace, so an analysis. Try it again. An analysis of the fragrant molecules that come off of the actual plant. And so they recreate that in the lab, and then he created a whole fragrance around it.
Yeah.
Which is just marvelous.
Yeah.
So what Eau de Magnolia does is it smells like real magnolias.
Yeah, which is they have this very like prominent lemon facet.
Yeah, I like creamy lemons.
Yes,
creamy lemons.
Creamy lemons, lovely idea.
Yeah. Creamy lemons.
Yeah.
So they've got that nice lemony aspect. They've got a sort of soft white floralcy. And then this is also kind of like a classic cologne in the background.
Yeah, totally. Like it's super, super fresh.
Yeah.
Super like white musky. It's very white t-shirt.
Yeah.
And then it's got this like green facet that is very almost like a sheep type fine.
Yeah, I would say there's kind of like a slight mossiness to it as well.
Yeah, there is a mossiness.
And it properly feels like a magnolia tree just giving off lots of beautiful fresh floral.
It's just
whatever.
It's just radiant.
And radiant is absolutely the word for it, because it's got presence.
Yeah,
but it's like people can smell it, but I don't think it's so intense.
No. It's very
transparent.
Yeah, it's kind of it's diaphanous. It's got this like. It's just clean. It's like clean without being aquatic, and like even though I suppose there is like a kind of like a watery aspect to it, like a
it's like petally watery. Yeah. It's lovely. I just think it's great.
They did a campaign. So what's interesting about Frédéric Malle is some years they don't launch something, so they pull focus on an existing fragrance in ways that other brands don't really do, and they will do like their campaign for summer is Eau de Magnolia, and they did these like beautiful images of. They're kind of like macro shots of people, and they were like really blue skies, and then like the magnolia. It was just like almost like vintage Polaroid type style. It was really beautiful. But yeah, this is for me is their best fragrance.
Yeah, I just love it. And I think as a brand, Frédéric Malle do florals incredibly well. Yeah, we didn't talk about it, but I love Lys Méditerranée. Which is
that's a beautiful one.
It's gorgeous. It's like a lovely salty stargazer lily, very sort of like aquatic and just weird. But
and makes
fabulous.
lily quite luxury, because I think lily is very often used as like a home fragrance, because it's not something people really want to wear.
No, and like there's like a spicy aspect that maybe is not for everyone, but it's wonderful. En Passant, which is a lilac, is incredible. I mean. I always used to see people complaining about how long it lasted, because it didn't last super long.
The name is In Passing.
Yeah.
I'm pulling an incredulous face.
Right there. It's right there. But it smells fabulous and perfect.
Yeah.
In the time that it's around, which is a couple of hours, 3-4 hours max.
And I had a really lovely experience with that fragrance, because I had never really paid any attention to it.
Yeah.
And I remember I met the trainer at Frédéric Malle at the time, who's this amazing lady called Danielle. And if Danielle's listening, you're amazing. We were talking about the fragrances, and just the way she talked about this fragrance when we were smelling it just made me fall in love with it. Yeah. And I think that's just so wonderful that someone else can kind of share their passion for a fragrance. Yeah, yeah. And like it clicks in your mind, and you're like, oh, I get it now. Yeah. And it's just that beautiful, like kind of cucumber freshness, the like breadiness almost of
there's like
the lilacs,
wheaty sort of aspect, and it's like lilacs and laundry.
Yeah. It's gorgeous.
Lovely. And yeah, so I just think like as a brand and as a sort of like artistic director, florals are kind of like, go here, see the floral. Une rose, come on.
Oh, come on.
Fabulous.
Come on.
I mean, just florals are amazing from Frédéric Malle, but everything else is really good too.
I think it's just amazing to have one brand with such range.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's just kind of exquisitely done, which is annoying but also really appreciated.
Like the only thing that could really tie a Frédéric Malle fragrance with another is quality. And I mean that in a positive way, in the sense that there is no house signature. No. You don't smell it and go, oh, that's a Frédéric Malle. It's like, it's just, is it a beautiful perfume? Yeah. Then yes, it could very well be a Frédéric Malle fragrance, because that just the quality is exceptional. The presentation is great. The kind of ethos behind it is wonderful. The only thing that annoys me is that there is not a grooming range for Geranium per Monsieur.
No, but they did some festival.
They did, yeah. I feel like they need to do Geranium in like some sort of.
Well, do they not have the soap?
They've got. I think they might have the soap, but I feel like they need to have like
shaving stuff. Shaving stuff would make sense.
It would
just be like thematically. Maybe it doesn't work very well.
No, maybe it doesn't.
Because
again, if you're listening, Frederic,
you could do that. That would work.
Yeah, it would work.
Sure
Yeah.
I'm sure he's thought about it.
Yeah, this is a really lovely brand. We would love to hear your favourites.
Yes.
I mean, there must be about 30 or so in the collection now. It
must be getting on for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many there are off the top of my head.
And obviously we haven't smelled all of them, and that's not because we don't love them all. We love probably like 98% of them, I would say.
Which one's left out there?
Well, I'm not a big fan of Raisin Queer, and I do find that Monsieur is like interesting idea, but because it's like so high on the patchouli, when something's very patchouli-esque, it gives me a little bit of a headache.
Yeah.
So I probably have a little bit of like a with that.
I'm personally not mad about outrageous, but
yeah.
Is that what it's called? That's what it's called.
Yeah.
I having like a
I hadn't even factored outrageous into this. So
yeah.
That probably says a lot.
Yeah.
But there are way many more hits than misses. In this brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an exceptional brand, and here's to 20 more years of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
As if the world's going to last that long.
We're all gone in 5. Damn.
But yeah, I think it's exciting, and I think it's actually worth celebrating 20 years of Malle.
Absolutely.
They have done so much. So many other brands have started putting their perfumers out there, and putting perfumers' names
on their bottles, on press releases, talking about them, inviting them to press launches, all kinds of things as a result of what Frédéric Malle's done. And I think he really, really shifted the industry and the conversation about the industry. Yeah.
And also turning retail into kind of an experiential thing.
Absolutely.
Walking into his stores, all of which are different in their design, but all have like the smelling pods, which... you don't stand in.
I really was disappointed because I kind of wanted a crystal maze experience.
And you just want bottles of Portrait of a Lady and grabbing them. But you can obviously smell them, and it's not really a gimmick. It allows you to smell it without any other kind of interruption.
Yeah, and then it kind of wicks it away, and then you can smell something else, and it's very cool.
But making that as an experience and a destination, and I think you're keeping things in the fridge. Love that. Big fan of that. I keep my Eau de Magnolia in the fridge in the summer.
I mean, that makes sense because when it's boiling hot and you spray that on to cool down and just smell lovely and like gorgeous.
Yeah, I know. I know it makes sense. That's why I do it.
I'm
you agree with me now? Do you mostly agree with me on this, or do you agree with me fully?
30% disagree.
Okay. So yes, tell us what your favourite Frédéric Malle fragrances are. I think we talked about the ones that we think are kind of like their iconic, emblematic, fascinating ones.
But then, to be fair, they kind of all are, which isn't because like could talk about bigger ads and loads of air and and they're all because there's so much good stuff.
But we can't do a 2-hour podcast.
No,
because we have homes to get to.
And also we flag.
Yeah, we flag. This gets like less interesting as time goes on, I think, because then we go off on more tangents. We're doing it now. We are doing it now, where we're
wrapping up and doing tangents.
Yeah, like everyone's like, okay, great. My dinner's nearly ready. Like I was listening to this while I cooked. Now I'm ready. Can we just?
All right.
So we hear you. This has been Fume Chat. We are at Fume Chat. We are hello@fumechat.com. Nick R. Gilbert, the Candy Perfume Boy. We will be back next week.
We will.
With another episode.
And aren't you lucky?
Aren't you lucky? Yes, you are lucky to have us in your lives.
Oh, goodness me.
Goodbye.
Bye.
It's Fume Chat, Fume Chat with Thomas and Nick. We talk perfume and fragrance.
Fume Chat is an all fiction production. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Fume Chat. We're also on Facebook as Fume Chat. And we have a website, which is www.fumechat.com. Very often the products that we feature are products that have been sent to us by brands. We are never paid for any of our episodes. If we are paid, we will tell you because we're pretty nice like that and we'd like you to know. Sometimes the products are also things that we brought from home. Just enter into it with that expectation. Okay, thanks. Bye.
From Chanel number 5 to Angel and more. We're covering the famous scents that you're looking for. It's time for some fragrances. It's time to start the show. It's Fume Chat, yeah, Fume Chat. Here